Well, happy WandaVision Friday to every single one of you guys. The WandaVision reviews continue today for episode 4 in full spoiler detail. We're going to have a blast discussing this episode because, wow, a lot of details started coming out. We got to see a lot of the outside world, and this is going to be an interesting episode to talk with you guys because we see some returning MCU characters here and some cool correlations to Endgame and past that. I really like this episode, and overall, if you haven't checked out any of the recaps or reviews yet, I've overall loved WandaVision. So far, I think it's one of the most unique things that Marvel has done yet, and I'm just aching for every single episode, every detail going about. And I'm sure many of you guys are over here doing the exact same thing that I am as well. So if you are, guys, and you guys just need a place to keep coming to talk WandaVision, Marvel, geeky stuff, Star Wars, or just in general movies, this is the channel for you guys. So hit that like and subscribe button so you can keep coming back here every single week so we can keep talking WandaVision, any sort of other things coming to the Disney Plus very soon, as well as comment down below and let me know your guys' thoughts, theories, and what do you guys think is going to be going on next week's episode. There's so much to discuss, so much to dissect, and we're gonna have a blast talking about it all down below there. Without further ado though, holy crap. So of course last week's episode ended with Monica Rambeau coming right out to the world, and well, we find out that she's not in WandaVision's world anymore. The interesting part was where this episode opened up, and I felt a little bit confused. I was like, oh, why is she like all reappearing, blah, blah, and then it hit me. I'm like, she was a part of the blip. She was literally a part of the blip. She disappeared, and it was so brilliant to see and have a catch-up session with her character in general, really seeing how her mother passed away within those 5 years, how she disappeared, and just in general, the panic state that everyone was in within that hospital was just such a desperate measure. And I've always been saying this, that there's so much time to really develop and play around within those 5 years from Infinity War to Endgame, and I'm very interested to see how other movies start to portray there. I've heard that Shang-Chi could potentially be doing the blip as well. That will be interesting. Eternals, maybe, who else knows what could possibly be going down, but I'm just all suckered in for it. Again, very heartbreaking to see Monica's mother pass, but of course then she gets back to work. 3 weeks later, she's back at S.W.O.R.D. They're trying to build this all about. It's cool that they're dissecting S.W.O.R.D. even more, and she just kind of gets a run about, hey, we're going to send you to this location. There's something weird going about, missing persons report. She goes there. We see Jimmy Woo. Of course, I love Randall Park, but of course, he was from Ant-Man and the Wasp. A little tie-in there. They head there. They're like, what's going on here? No one can remember that Westview, even though there is a sign right there that Westview is down the street, but nothing, like, just for some reason doesn't want us to go down there. They used a little helicopter. We saw that. I was like, okay, so that's where the helicopter came. They fly it in and it disappears. Then Monica walks up and she completely disappears. And it's like, okay, what is going on here? And again, this episode was more or less more questions given to us, some answers here and there, but overall still the fundamental of who is doing this to Wanda. And you know, now you have that theory at the end that we'll talk about where Monica's like, it's Wanda doing this, which I don't believe that. I think Wanda is a part of it, but someone is still having her do this. Like, how did she get into that situation? That's the interesting aspect that I'm still looking forward to. This is only episode 4, guys. We still have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We still have 5 episodes left of WandaVision to really dissect and see what about is going on. And I've noticed every episode's starting to get slightly a little bit longer by like a couple minutes here and there. But again, of course, the episode continues. Monica gets sucked in. S.W.O.R.D., the FBI, the military, everyone comes about, and of course our darling Kate Dennings from, of course, Thor pops in, and she's one of the ones that they called in, and she's the one that's actually was watching that retro TV at the end of one of the first 2 episodes that we saw, which I know some people have the theory of, which great job to whoever caught that, because I didn't catch it at all. And again, she's the one that's noticing that, yes, what they are watching, what we were watching the first 2 episodes is what the outside world is. That frequency is out there. And again, that is an interesting aspect to say nonetheless, to see how, again, and someone's editing that. Someone is jumbling it up. And again, that's why I don't think it's fully Wanda. I think some people do still have that theory. I don't. Someone is controlling it from the inside. Someone is still controlling that frequency and what they want them to see out there. And of course, then now they're going to get more of the word of what's going on, because with Monica now outside of the entire world, it's definitely adding to a bunch of different tension levels. But of course, we see in there's just a lot of cool elements in there, and a lot of cool things of seeing how they're reacting to TV shows, how we were reacting, what is this? And again, that's the interesting thing that I find so very funny is a lot of us are poo-pooing on this sitcom idea, but it's not a sitcom. This is actually happening to these characters, and we don't know if it's an alternate dimension or again something that's coming about. But the most interesting aspects that come about in this episode is towards the very end again, because we see they're watching that episode that we just watched last week, and it cuts, and then the aspect ratio changes again, and it goes back to that scene because we didn't see what happened to Monica. And we see that, of course, Wanda Maximoff blows her out and then fixes everything back to normal and kicks her out. And of course, in that moment, Monica goes out there and she goes, "It's Wanda, it's Wanda, it's Wanda," which again, that's going to open up more doors, and it's going to be interesting to see how the episodes now play about within going from inside the WandaVision to outside the WandaVision to the real world, and again, playing with those aspects, that mystery theme, that Twilight Zone element that is still prevalent within there, and it continues in there. And I've always noticed the Twilight Zone element always happens towards the very end, and in this one, it was pretty haunting when she's holding, she's looking at her babies. We see Vision walk in. He didn't look as perky, and I said there's something wrong with him. When she turned around, I kind of almost jumped because it was him with his head ripped out, and I'm like, oh shit. And she finally no, nothing, honey, nothing. What should we watch tonight? They pick up the babies, they sit down, and it goes from there, and the credits start to roll. And again, opening those ideas, and again, when they're trying to figure out who's in there, who's not, and figure out, okay, this is this person, this is this person. They make the good idea that is there a sitcom with 2 Avengers in it? And I thought Vision was dead. They make the same questions that we have, which again make it very interesting. I am loving WandaVision, and even though this episode didn't give me fully amount of answers that I was expecting, or again that movement towards more, I was expecting a little bit more with Monica going about. This was more of a straight Kate Dennings and Jimmy Woo total episode, and I didn't mind it. I know a lot of people don't love those characters. I don't mind them. I actually really like them in this context of what was going on, and again made it very meta to what we were saying as we were watching WandaVision. Everything they said, I was pretty much saying the same thing, and I'm sure many of you guys were doing the same thing as well. So next week's episode seems to be that next one that finally moves a little bit further, at least hopefully, because that's what this episode was looking to be, and it moved the story a bit and played around with the outside a little bit more, and I think we didn't need an episode like this, but I'm hoping next week's episode starts to finally start churning out more of that mystery, who's doing this, who's the villain. They didn't say who Agnes was. It doesn't look like they have anyone to her. Everyone else has an idea except her. So who is she? It's getting interesting, guys. And this is where I really need you guys to come in and start dropping your theories down below. Any Easter eggs I missed, any sort of thing small like that, let's discuss it down there. That is the best place to have it. And that's what I love about doing these videos, is hearing what your guys' thoughts are. So let's have a great conversation down below, guys. Make sure as well to hit that like and subscribe button again so you don't miss out on content like this over here on a daily basis as well. Again, guys, head on over to Sam's from Films on how to see films early, and of course, just a big thank you to you and a big thank to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It's not my favorite one yet, but it definitely started opening more doors for WandaVision, and I am completely sucked into this world. Kevin Feige, you can literally do anything, man, and I will be there first day. So I thank you guys again, and of course, until next time, though, until next week, it's WandaVision, WandaVision. I absolutely love my shirt. Thank you guys again, and of course, again, stay classy.